All right, here we go. Part two. I didn't want to draw that out too much. So if you haven't seen part one yet, go back and look. This is the downside of using aftermarket parts. So there was some unscrupulous character that swore that he rebuilt this with factory parts. Well, Mr. Hackosaurus here, if you don't know, on the back side of the case, back here, there was where your choke rod would be, and there's where your kill switch would be. Well, there's a bolt that holds that together. And let's see if I can lay that back on there like it's supposed to be. Now, if you ever know anything about how things fail, if I had done some of this douchebaggery, you would actually see shiny metal, but you see all that's absorbed the oil and grease. So there's no like bright shiny material there where I just snapped it off. Somebody just put it back on there and bolted it back together like nothing happened. And I was correct. These are a little crunchy. So, just doing it right. He agreed that he would spend the extra money to make this just fine. Part one, the fit was good on the small end of the rod, where the needle bearing was. But this is indeed an aftermarket needle bearing. If I can get in there, and everything's nasty around here. I'm not gonna take the OEM one out of the box. How much nicer is that? And here's the deal. So these bearings have no markings whatsoever on them. There's no C3 rating, there's no nothing. And if, you're gonna go through this kind of effort of tearing a saw down to every nut, bolt, and screw, okay, great. You can buy aftermarket bearings for a couple of dollars a piece. But you could also buy Nachi or another brand name bearing, SKF. Just be careful. SKF's made all over the world. So, you can actually have SKF bearings in an Indian package, in a Chinese package, in an Italian, Portugal. So, here, let me grab. I want to say the last time I bought these, they've gotten a little bit more expensive. You used to be able to buy these for like $6, $7 a piece. And just like everything else, it's a little bit more. But, these are damn fine bearings. And, if you're at this point, you're only saving a couple of bucks. I just don't understand. I don't. All right, got the case all back together. Everything's all nice, slick as a minnow. And yes, I checked both sides of these bearings. They're as generic gets. Let's see. When this saw was put together last time, they reused the case gasket. For a few extra bucks, I think, a master gasket set for this is like 15 or 18 bucks for OEM. You're getting quality. These are so much nicer and thicker than the cheap aftermarket ones. And these are really the important ones. These go on either side of your carburetor. This one's more important. Always inspect your intake blocks really well and look for any damage, cracks, or anything. You don't want, if you have a leak here, and this is why we don't use intake blocks anymore. The rubber just does a much better job. Get your mating surface cleaned up. So I think I'm all prepped and ready to go. Got a few things laid out here for me. I still have to install my seals. And I got a fresh worm gear, a few fresh things while we're putting it back together, so there's no issues down the road. But anyway, case cleaned up nice. Not quite hospital clean, but you know, good enough to make sure that we've got a nice clean crankcase when we bolt our new cylinder on. We'll be in good shape. Okay, I'm partway done with this 272 cylinder, and I wanted to show you something. So that bridge, here, let me get something to point with. This bridge right here, let me clean that nasty thing up. When we look on older saws, if you look down in there, that it's pretty much straight across. Oops, there we go. All right, it's about as good as I can get you in there. There's a slight, here's what I'm trying to show you. So on, this is an old KS 064 cylinder. Everybody loves how great the 064s run. And here's how they came from the factory. So I've got it backwards here, and I'll show you what I've done. So here's your exhaust side, and see how that's been relieved. And my idea, and I think what they were trying to do, is to get that flow to come in here and direct it back towards the spark plug, towards the top of the combustion chamber, the rear of the combustion chamber, to get that scavenging loop. So that helps direct the flow. You'll notice that. So this is that same jug, it's just the other side. I've only done one side. So you'll notice I widen over on this side, and then I've cut and relieved this area right in here to help direct. And this is a KS jug as well. So there's your, showed you this the other day. Hard to see right there. So that right there, supposedly, that's definitely a KS. That's not really showing up. There we go. There's a better look at what the KS, the Kolpenschmidt logo looks like. And if we take a look at the factory exhaust port, they square it off pretty good. You know, there's some carbon in there so you don't get the true shape of it. You know, and somewhere in the middle lies some durability. I've widened this just a little bit, and I left, and I'm more particular about in the corners. Whoops, well, it's hard to do this. Is have just a little bit more rounded edge, a little flatter up top, and a little bit more round over here, just so that corner's not so sharp like this one is. So we can always look back to the good old days when we called them muscle saws and incorporate that into some new jugs. Now, the question is this better with a straight bridge, or were they better back in the day with a relieved bridge? Y'all talk about that. Let's do a little final inspection before we button this thing up. Exhaust has been widened and raised. Intake has barely been touched. It is squared off, but it is basically a stock intake port, just some modest reshaping. And then here's what we talked about, is getting that flow in this corner so we can get it closer to the back of the combustion chamber. All right, left all that. That's all rough cast from the factory. We'll leave that there for better airflow. Same thing over here. Upper transfer work. And let's see how shiny the exhaust port is. Oh, it's shiny. All right. That's all I got to say about that. Well, sorry that didn't take you long for any of the build. I'll catch you on the next one. You know, just fighting the grease grime and try to be delicate with everything because, well, you know, besides the piston, cylinder, bearings, gaskets, it's an old saw. But anyway, it's dark outside. Tomorrow's a new day, but I wanted to get this one done. We'll do test cuts tomorrow, but I just kind of wanted to show you. I pulled it over a couple of times and she should be able to get up and bring the mail. So both of these saws are ready at the same time, and if you haven't watched the video I did earlier today, then have a look at the 462. So there we have like all the high-tech, glitzy, M-tronic, computer controlled, yada yada yada, and now we've got, hell, I don't know, a 25-year-old saw. We're getting ready to run 272 XP. This old ugly Betty is a stout little runner. Let's see what she can do in the wood. This same bar and same chain as the 462. What y'all think about that, but that's a brand new top end if you're just checking in. So the rings haven't even seated yet. Had one little heat cycle before we took it out here and run it, but 02 series Husky, man. Them little jokers are hard to beat. Vibrations are ridiculous compared to a 462, but you know, that's part of the thing. I can actually feel it, just that little bit of running. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, throw me a like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.